what is going on, freedom fighters? Welcome back to another Mile High Monday here on Break the Chains Media. Today is Monday, December 15th, 2025, and oh my gosh, we have got a lot, a mountain, a truckload, if you will. We got a truckload of information to go over today regarding Tina Peters, the pardon that Trump issued, the state of the election, interference, integrity, coercion, collusion, this crime syndicate that's running Colorado, how it ties with Venezuela. I know I've done this so many times on the stream, but the just information just keeps flowing like I've said it before. Just like drinking out of a fire hose, folks. So we are going to get into all of the stuff. I was grilling Jena Griswold. I've been grilling the whole Colorado system here. Judge Barrett. Everything that's been involved with the Tina Peters case. The fact that Tina Peters was railroaded in that court. They narrowed the scope. Judge Barrett did an excellent job defending and standing for the state and making sure that the scope of the argument within Tina's trial was limited into state convictions. Making sure they denied like 41 pieces of federal evidence into Tina's case. So there's a lot to get into. There's a lot to understand what this Trump pardon is and what the Trump pardon actually means. And it's, and folks, let's be clear. Trump's pardon is not like, oh, Tina's, oh, you're free to go. Here we go. Because it's setting a precedent. It's asking the question. It begs the question, what are the roles and what is the authority that the president has, particularly when it comes to pardoning, particularly when it comes to states that are in violation or that have weaponized their own state laws against the people, especially when we're talking about involving with a federal election. Bringing it back to Judge Barrett, talking about how he limited the scope, made sure that there was no federal evidence of a federal election in Tina Peters' trial. And they got her on impersonating and tampering with election equipment and various other charges, state charges, but it had nothing to do with actual specifics of a federal election. And this is where it really comes in, because the Trump pardon obviously is a federal pardon. And there's a larger conversation regarding, are we talking about modern interpretation of the presidential pardon or pre-Civil War, pre-Lincoln era powers of the pardon? I went on like a deep dive going into like the Constitution and the articles and read into some Federalist Paper stuff and just I just for hours I like dove into this and just kind of just like got overwhelmed almost going into all of this, but understanding that we are in a very unique, a very dynamic, a very fluid time right now in America, in American politics. And what I really feel all of this is building up to, all of this is coming at, and it's all leading up to a larger election integrity overhaul on a federal level, nationalizing how federal government operates federal elections, understanding the scope in which the federal government has the authority to to apply uniformity to all 50 states. Because right now, you have multiple different states being sued by the DOJ. Jena Griswold just got sued for unredacted voter files, along with like 14 other states. But this is all coming back to pulling out evidence and showing the receipts of how these states have been using motor voter information and motor voter data, running it through the DMV, registering non-citizens to vote, not asking for IDs, completely allowing weak election laws in the states. And it does say in the Constitution that the states are in charge of the time, place, and manner of elections. Well, when that election is a federal election, what type of authority, what kind of authority does the United States government have in those elections? And in Tina Peters' case, it was a federal election. So on this live stream, we are going to get into all of that. We probably aren't going to actually like solve the issues of the world. Do we ever? I mean, we hope we do. We'd like to try to. but to have these conversations, to get a better understanding on this whole political move. And I do believe that the Trump pardon is a political pressure that is being applied to Governor Polis, because right now the governor has the authority for state pardons, right? So it's all a show. It's not a show, but you know what I mean. We're moving, the chessboard is being set, the pieces are in place to actually instill and enact a national updated understanding on how our elections work. So, folks, without further ado, we are getting into that here today on Break the Chains Media. If this is the first time joining Break the Chains Media, hit that follow button, hit that thumbs up button, share this video, be a part of the chain gang, be a part of the chain breakers, be a part of the solution, understanding that the fight that we have right now is against the globalists, is against Agenda 2030. It's against everyone involved in all facets of government who push the envelope for a liberal economic order, a new world order, a new era of how they operate our government. And the way they're doing that right now is with the election, is with election integrity, is passing these types of laws in the government, in the states. So without further ado, we are going to get into it, folks. If this is your first time, check out breakthechains.media. That is the website. That is where you check out Realm Walker Hot Sauce. Grab your bottle of hot sauce. Winter's right around the corner, folks. If you want to get a sweet bottle of hot sauce, excellent gift idea. They are ready to go. We got them bottled up, ready to go. So Niflheim, jalapeno, tomatillo, cilantro, lime, Midgard, tomatillo, lime, serrano peppers, excellent. We've also got Muspelheim, and we've also got Ragnarok. Ragnarok is like a spicy, smoky hot sauce. So, you want to support Break the Chains Media, that is how you do it, Realm Walker Hot Sauce. But we are going to get right over here. Got the Chainsaw Caucus. Got to rev up them chainsaws for the Chainsaw Caucus. That's what we got to do. We got to do it. Got to do it. Chainsaw Caucus is settling political corruption and limiting the scope and the power that they waste our monies. These politicians waste our money. Cut the waste, fraud, and abuse. Chainsaw Caucus. Get involved. The link is in the pinned description down below. There's a URL there. Click it. Be a part of the Chainsaw Caucus. $10 a month. Helps everyone out. Me included. But without further ado, we are going to get into it. We're jumping right into it because I got a lot to talk about. We got a lot to talk about, folks. So, let's see here. Well, where do we really begin, right? So, this is the timeline cleanse. Oh, yes. Beautiful, right? It is beautiful. Candace Owens wins the Tardy Award from Retard Finder. It's quite beautiful, I will say so. But this all happened. What did it happened Thursday night, I believe it was. So Donald Trump. I gotta record this. Hold on. We'll see how much I'm actually gonna save of this recording, but I want to make sure my lighting is fine. All right, we're good. We are good. We are good to go. All right. Donald Trump issued a pardon for Tina Peters. And it's very interesting because, as we all know, presidential pardons cannot be implied on state crimes. Presidential pardons cannot be issued for state crimes. And this is the scope and this is the crux of the entire movement. What happened with Tina Peters, how her trial, how her case was so narrow in scope, and Judge Barrett limited so many different things. 41 pieces of evidence were not admitted into her court case to exonerate and to prove why she did what she did. And now, don't get me wrong. I do believe Tina Peters did commit crimes. I believe she had bad counsel. I believe she was manipulated, and she was actually given this sense of being, the sense of self, the sense of grander, a bigger thing to be. She was a pivotal role in the outcome of the future of our country, and she very well could be. But the sad thing is she was mentally manipulated by bad actors, in my opinion, to have her actually break state law. She did break state law. She did turn off the cameras, and she went behind the Secretary of State to extract this data using a third party, using a falsified identity. So I'm not discrediting the fact that she committed crimes, but for her to get a 9-year sentence and for her to be treated the way she's being treated in La Vista Correctional Facility in Pueblo is a travesty. It is an absolute travesty to see to see how it's all unfolding right now. Okay, and when Donald Trump goes out there and says she found election interference, she found that they were stealing the election, folks, that is all very colorful words, and I want to make sure that everyone understands what really is going on. And I'm trying to not mince my words while I say it. I do believe there were irregularities. There were problems with the Mesa County voter rolls. There was an issue, and I've shown it on my live streams in the past. There were problems with the state voter rolls versus the county voter rolls, and this is what Tina Peters was seeing. And on top of that, she pulled the build prior to Jenna Griswold wanting a clean build, and that build that was put onto these machines only 6 months after the election wiped a lot of the data that Tina Peters held. So, with that being said, Tina Peters did do something very important. However, she went about it in a very criminal way, which she should have not done. She could have done it in a very lawful and within the rule of law way, but I think she was given false sense of importance by bad actors, or false direction by bad actors. But let's get into it here. Tina Peters' actions fulfilled federal law 52 U.S.C. 20701, requiring 22-month retention of election records, including digital ones. This warrants a Supreme Court review on presidential pardons overriding state convictions and suppression of federal evidence / speech. That's my standing of this. That is what I am trying to show, and that actually. So I've got to kind of bounce around because I got to go from there, and I've got to go up here to Trump's video, and I just posted this. So we're gonna listen to Trump. We're gonna listen to Trump's announcement, but I do think the board is being set when it comes to the conversation regarding election integrity. What Trump is doing with Tina Peters right now, adding additional pressure to Governor Polis and the state of Colorado, suing Secretary of State Jenna Griswold over unredacted voter files, and on top of that, suing multiple other states for unredacted voter data as well, and having the civil rights and Harmeet Dillon looking into the conditions of Colorado prisons. There are, and Peter Tickton applying illegal pressure. There are so many different angles that Colorado is being looked at right now. So let's take a listen about what Trump has to say about Tina Peters right here.
Colorado, the poorly run state of Colorado, with a governor who's incompetent, and frankly with a governor that won't allow our wonderful Tina to come out of a jail, in a high-intensity jail, because she caught people cheating on an election, and they said she was cheating. She wasn't cheating. She went over, she looked at one of the election scams going on, and because she did that, they put her in jail for 9 years. The governor of Colorado is a weak and pathetic man who was run by Tren de Aragua, the criminals from Venezuela, took over sections of Colorado, and he was afraid to do anything. But he puts Tina in jail for 9 years because she caught people cheating. And when she walked over and got involved in it, they said she was cheating. She wasn't cheating. She caught people cheating on the election.
Yes.
2020.
Absolutely.
Along with a lot of other people that cheated on that election. You'll see that coming out more and more.
Absolutely, and I fully agree that she did find irregularities. She did see what Secretary of State Jenna Griswold, what Colorado State has been doing for the better part of a decade now when it comes to their voter rolls and how they skew and manipulate and twist our election results. And that's just in Mesa County. I'm calling it now. They're setting the stage to call a national emergency over election integrity. Trump might not get everything right here, but he does get right that Governor Polis is a weak and pathetic man, and Tina Peters should be free. I agree with that. And this is all pushing into the conversation of a Lincoln, pre-Lincoln powers of the presidential pardon. Okay? And this is going to this is going to go up to the Supreme Court, folks. Mark my words. This is going to come up to the Supreme Court. They're going to say, what is the scope of a presidential pardon? And when Tina Peters this case is very unique because Tina Peters was a federal election officer. She was doing a federal job by operating a federal election. And then the state comes in and throws state charges and state crimes on her and convict her on a state charge when she was doing a federal duty. That's where everything kind of is at that linchpin, that precipice. That is the very important factor that we have to continuously address. Okay? So let's go back here. I'm going to go back down to somewhere over here-ish. Yeah. And folks, we're just doing this in real time. This is how we do it here on Breaking Chains Media. If you like it, smash the thumbs up button and share this with your friends and family. Be a part of the Chain Gang. Well, I think Trump. Hold on. Well, I think Trump pardoning Peter. Wow. All right. Are we ready? While I think Trump pardoning Tina Peters is a noble effort, Colorado State made sure she was convicted under narrow scope within state law nullifying federal action. Trump needs to present irrefutable 2020 election interference from Venezuela directly tied to her case. I think that Venezuela plays a pivotal role in this. I also think that the way that the states have been legislating their election process has a very critical role in this. There's multiple layers that they can go at this from the DOJ. The DOJ, as long as they get their head out of their ass, as long as the DOJ actually does something, which is a whole nother conversation. But I'm just showing you the information I have here, folks. Let's take a look further, because this is all going on Tina. This is all going against Jena Griswold and how the response that Jena Griswold has of Trump's pardon. Here we go. This is fantastic. I'm actually getting a lot of visibility with these posts, but this is Colorado Attorney General Phil Weiser coming out in response to Trump's pardoning of Tina Peters. And all I did was put a quote. I put a quote up. A communist system can be recognized when the system spares the criminals and criminalizes the political opponents. Alexander Stolenichen. Okay? Let's take a listen.
President Trump's now saying he's going to pardon Tina Peters. He has no authority to do that. It's a basic principle of our Constitution that states run their criminal justice systems. We're doing that here in Colorado. He can't tell us what to do. I'm never going to be afraid of this president. I'm going to stand for what's right. I'll always fight for Colorado.
So, in response to Phil Weiser, Mr. Phil Weiser, what happens when the state's criminal justice system is corrupt? What happens when the Secretary of State's office does election gathering, does voter registration unlawfully against the federal government? What happens when there's an entire government apparatus running the state of Colorado like a criminal cartel mafia? And they are weaponizing the judicial system, they're weaponizing the legislative branch, and they're weaponizing every aspect of our government against the people, particularly when it comes to Tina Peters and how they're silencing dissent and they're silencing questioning of an election that's quote-unquote the gold standard. If it's the gold standard, why are you retaining our voter data? If it's the gold standard, Jena Griswold, why are you refusing to release voter roll data to the federal government? And we'll get into that in a minute. But this is the bigger question, folks. This is the bigger uncovering rot and root. Pull it all out, root and stem, right? The criminal cartel operating within Colorado has been doing it since the mid-2000s. And the fact that this is all being focused around election integrity, around voter roll data, around voter registration, around the lawfare that's being placed within Colorado. These elected officials here in Colorado are operating like a criminal cartel. And they're doing so to stonewall and to subjugate the citizens. They're stonewalling the federal government. And this is the biggest hang-up. This is why Tulsi Gabbard and the DOJ, Harmeet Dillon, they're throwing so much at Colorado right now because they're going to uncover something huge, and it's going to make a biblical shift in the way our elections are operated here in America. That is really, I think, the crux of this whole conversation, okay? Right here. Secretary of State Jenna Griswold claims we have the gold standard because Secretary of State Jenna Griswold claims we have the gold standard of elections here in Colorado. Statewide mail-in balloting, okay? Statewide mail-in balloting. People get multiple ballots in different houses over the course of their years. Some people don't even live in the state anywhere. They still get ballots mailed to their parents' houses, okay? Oh, but Jenna Griswold says that no one could fill that out. No one it couldn't be counted anyways. I've spoken to people specifically saying that they have gotten duplicate ballots. They've filled out a ballot wrong. They remedied one and this, that, and the other, and then both ballots were still sent through. Okay, danger. Statewide mail-in balloting is one of the main mechanisms of Democrats' operation here in how they manipulate election results. Registering non-citizens automatically through the DMV. That is another way that they do it. They don't require the ID. Because you go through the DMV, you don't need an ID when you vote. That's their justification. That's how they cover their ass. This is another way that Jenna Griswold and the state of Colorado here and other states, which is why 14 states are being sued. They run this and they placate this like they are upholding the law, right? They say, oh, we're doing everything up and up by the book and everything's verified and track traced. Bullshit. This is how they fucking do it. Compromised chain of custody, just to name a few. Jenna Griswold's gold standard is more akin to a fool's gold standard, okay? The gold standard for cheating, more like it. Okay? Let's go into, where was he? Where we at? Oh, that was that. And then, I have some other things I was going to pull up here. I've got some articles here. Justice Department sues 4 more states, including Colorado. This is from the Colorado Sun. So far, 18 states have been sued, along with Fulton County in Georgia, which was sued for records related to the 2020 election. Department of Justice is suing... The U.S. Department of Justice is suing 4 more states as part of its effort to collect detailed voting data and other election information across the country. The department filed federal laws against Colorado, Hawaii, Massachusetts, and Nevada on Thursday, failing to produce statewide voter registration list upon request. The Trump administration has characterized the lawsuits as part of an effort to ensure security of elections, and the Justice Department says the states are violating federal law by refusing to provide the voter lists and information about ineligible voters. It's very simple. The lawsuits have raised concerns among some Democrat officials and others who question exactly how the data will be used. Oh my gosh, spare me. Jenna Griswold said this too. The federal government already has all of our fucking data. They already have they know when we poop, they know where we work, they know how long it takes for us to drive there, they know everything about us, okay? So for Jenna Griswold to claim that this is an invasion of privacy and we can't give the government our data, she's hiding something. Whether the department will follow privacy laws to protect the information. Some of the data sought includes names, date of birth, residential address, driver's license numbers, and partial social security number. We've already talked about this, folks. This is old news. Colorado Secretary of State Jenna Griswold said her office declined to provide unredacted voter data. We will not hand over Colorado's sensitive voting information to Donald Trump. He does not have a legal right to the information. You are incorrect, Jenna Griswold. HAVA and the NVRA, okay, the National Voter Rights Act allows federal requests for unredacted voter data. Case shut. Okay? I will continue to protect our elections and democracy. No, you are not going to win the case, Jenna. While these requests may seem like normal oversight, the federal government is using the power to try to intimidate states and influence how states administer elections. Yes, because you're doing it incorrectly. Because these states are weaponizing the voter rolls and weaponizing how they run their elections. All goes back to my point of having, it's based in the supremacy clause, folks. The supremacy clause. I'm going to pull it up right here, right fucking now. Okay? The supremacy clause is found in Article 4, Clause 2 of the U.S. Constitution. This Constitution and the laws of the United States, which shall be made in pursuant thereof, and all treaties made or which shall be made under the authority of the United States, shall be the supreme law of the land, and the judges in every state shall be bound thereby. Anything in the Constitution or laws of any state to the contrary, notwithstanding. The clause establishes the hierarchy of laws of the United States, declaring that the U.S. Constitution itself, federal laws enacted in accordance with the Constitution, and treaties made by other U.S. authority. They are the supreme laws of the land. This means they take precedence over any conflicting state constitution, state laws, or state judicial decisions. State judges, this is a pivotal point in the supremacy clause. State judges, and by extension all officials, must uphold federal law even if it contradicts state law. This resolves potential conflicts in favor of national authority, ensuring uniformity where federal power applies. And where does federal power apply? In federal U.S. elections. And if the federal U.S. election was being carried out and was being operated under the authority of the federal government, Tina Peters was operating the county clerk position in a federal election. And the fact that Judge Barrett denied evidence to her case regarding the federal election, I believe that the supremacy clause and everything there was standing, the judge needed to uphold to the U.S. law over the state law. And the fact that he narrowed the scope so drastically in her case shows a violation of her habeas corpus rights and her federal protection of federal evidence, federal coverage of federal laws in her case. Okay? It was included to address weaknesses in the Articles of Confederation where federal actions often lacked binding forces on states. Landmark cases like McCulloch in Maryland and Gibbons v. Ogden reinforced this role, preventing states from interfering with federal actions. Reinforced its role in preventing states from interfering with valid federal actions. Okay? And then we're going to keep going. We're going to keep talking about it. Because this is really where the rubber hits the road, okay? The election clause, Article 1, Section 4, gives states initial responsibility for the time, place, and manner of congressional elections, but explicitly allows Congress to make or alter those regulations. For presidential elections, Article 2, Section 1 allows states to appoint electors in which such manner legislature there may direct, but Congress can regulate via broader powers. Congress has enacted laws like the Voting Rights Act, enforcing the 15th Amendment to prevent discriminatory practices. If a state's election procedures, laws, rules, or administrations directly conflict with federal law, the federal law prevails. Examples of conflict: a state imposing voter ID requirements or purging rules that violate federal standards, or holding congressional elections on dates conflicting with federal law. Those are just examples, but you see where this is going. You can settle it through lawsuits. You can settle it through judicial remedy. You have a lot of historical examples of different interactions with the supremacy clause. Okay. The federal law must be constitutional with Congress's power. Courts often void last-minute changes near elections. State courts can review election laws or compliance with state constitution, but federal courts have ultimate oversight of federal laws implicated. In essence, the Supremacy Clause ensures that states cannot undermine federal election protections or uniformity. The violating state procedures would be struck down and elections would proceed under federal mandates. This has been upheld consistently by the Supreme Court and is essential to national electoral integrity. And then I ask about registering non-citizens, applying Supremacy Clause to non-citizens, and then I go off, but I don't want to keep reading all of that. But there, folks, we have a plethora of evidence. They are moving everything. Right now, there is a fucking boat armada in the Gulf of fucking America and off the coast of Venezuela, staged up and set up to, in my opinion, the drug trafficking angle is valid, but they're actually going in there for some election interference information. That's my opinion. We'll see. And then if there is actually proof, irrefutable proof of Venezuelan involvement and Venezuelan interference in our elections and being able to manipulate our elections, Executive Order 13848 can be applied. And then we're going to get an executive order on in regards to election interference from foreign adversaries. Like this is a huge move, and many different pieces are moving at the same time. Okay. I mean, yeah, at that point, might as well, right? We'll keep the oil. There's a whole nother angle to be had, because if we're talking about fighting globalism, if we're going to talk about making sure American efforts are upheld and American interests and American economy is upheld, we need to create a supply chain that is self-sustaining, that doesn't involve going across to China or into Europe or into the Middle East. So if we are to do that, I think having Venezuela as part of our internal supply chain when it comes to oil and what else have you, we need to be able to establish an American economy supply chain within the Americas, within South America, Central America, North America. We all should be self-sustaining in a smaller, tight-knit supply chain for economy, for infrastructure, for fuel, for all these things, manufacturing, you name it. That is a way that America can succeed. But that's a whole nother conversation. But I do think that there is a pivotal angle when it comes to how Venezuela plays into this whole election thing, right? Here is the docket. Wow, dog's barking over something. This is the official document case against Jena Griswold. Okay. The USA versus Jena Griswold in her official capacity as Secretary of State of Colorado. The complaints against Jena Griswold, attorney Eric Neff added a party of the United States filed by the attachment to compel production of the motion to compel production documents demanded pursuant to the Civil Rights Act of 1960. Case assigned. It's basic fucking legal jargon. But yes, they have officially sued Jena Griswold along with 18 other states. Okay, but this is actually what I wanted to show you. This is Tina Peters being arrested. Okay. Tina Peters, federal election officer, a case from Indiana heard by the Supreme Court in 1888, settled any remaining doubt about whether a state election official operated independent of federal scrutiny. Election officials had conspired to steal a local race which shared the ballot with the congressional election. Conceding their guilt, the officials tried to avoid federal charges by arguing that they had committed no crime against Congress, but the court disagreed. Okay? So this is where we're at, folks. This is where we are. This is what we are facing right now. Tina Peters' case is pivotal to understanding the involvement of federal elections in state elections and how the states the states might run the election, but if it's a federal election, who has the supremacist authority there, right? I don't even want to listen to that, but yes, Wano7 is posting some really good stuff, but he brings up that, and he also brings up to talk about pre-Lincoln pardoning powers, right? And then there's this whole angle, right? You want to get into this angle? I need to stop my recording because I'm gonna keep ranting about this the whole time, but do you guys remember Patrick Byrne? You guys know who Patrick Byrne is? Talks a lot about Tina Peters, talks a lot about election integrity, talks a lot about certain, this guy, right? This guy, okay? And I bring him up because this right here is actually a great way to we'll premise it with this, right? We'll premise it with this. Since its inception in 1947, the CIA has legal mandate to never interfere domestically, especially with partisan politics. And this letter shows that Gina Haspel, CIA, broke that mandate. That legal mandate did just that, and her employees went out and had signatories added to a letter, and they knew it contained false information. And there'd be a whole host of subpoenas going out to Gina Haspel, her leadership team, and everyone going out to have now been on email chain of custody, adding signatures to that letter. Are we ready to listen to this?
Probably going to ask me, so what? What's the big deal? Well, remember, since its inception in 1947, the CIA has a legal mandate to never interfere domestically, especially with partisan politics.
Okay.
And this letter shows that Gina Haspel's CIA broke that mandate, that legal mandate, and did just that, and her employees went out and had signatories added to a letter that they knew contained false information that Mike Morell wanted out for political reasons at the behest of Tony Blinken, at the time, then Biden's senior campaign aide, so that they could counter the narrative about Hunter Biden's laptop. Remember, that's what it all came down to. And the timeline is critically on. The Blinken contact to Morell is in October, and in a 4-day span, they have 51 signatories. They have the letter approved from the CIA saying you can publish this information even though it's sensitive. The CIA participated in partisan politics, and then candidate Biden used it in a presidential debate and said, our intelligence community even says my son's laptop is Russian disinformation. That is the definition of election rigging. And there better be a whole host of subpoenas going out to Gina Haspel, her leadership team, and every one of those people that have now been identified on that email chain, adding signatures to that letter. Probably going to ask me.
So I preface it with FBI Director Kash Patel talking about this, about the CIA. And I mention Patrick Byrne because here he is. And Patrick Byrne, he was with the Mike Lindell team. He was with the whole election interference rigging team. He's been a vocal proponent of Tina Peters. He's been a vocal supporter of the election was stolen and Tina Peters is a hero and we got to break her out, and all this conversation about election interference and how we have to proceed to do this whole. It says it right here. He paid for that legal defense. So let's take a listen. This is actually super interesting because it ties into the CIA and it ties into the election interference and the election rigging that we just heard Kash Patel talk about Hunter Biden's laptop in the 2020 election. Okay, it's all back to the 2020 election. There is so much shit in the 2020 election. It makes your fucking eyes bleed. It's insane. We got truckloads of evidence, folks. Truckloads of evidence. Okay. This is from Scott McMahon, Bigger Truth on Twitter. This clip, which appears to have been recorded prior to Tina's August 2024 trial, shows admitted Obama Tier 1 CIA asset Patrick Byrne making some stunning admissions. One, that he already paid over $1 million at that point in Tina's legal defense. So he paid partially over $1 million for legal defense of Tina Peters. He caused Tina to fire an attorney because the defense he was crafting showed exactly what Scott has been arguing. Kurt Olson and CIA asset Byrne, who who was paying Olsen, coerced her to commit the crime she committed. And like I said in the beginning, folks, they were bad actors involved that were, whether it was honeypotting or, making her believe that she had to do illegal activities to save America. Okay? He caused Tina to hire Stephanie Lambert, who was boasted about devising Peter's disastrous bad legal defense, which sought to make her trial a circus of false claims about the machines in 2020 instead of a defense about charges against her. And this is the bigger thing, is that the charges that the state stemmed against her, the charges that the state brought against her, did not involve federal elections, federal equipment tampering. None of the cases, none of the crimes against her were geared towards the federal election, and that is inherently the flaw. And that's why I talk about the supremacy clause. And that's why I talk about how Judge Barrett should have been upholding the U.S. Constitution and bringing in evidence, federal evidence in her case. The whole case was a railroaded sham. That's what I'm saying. But this right here shows the bad actors that played a part in how Tina, the position that Tina is in now, and how she's stuck in this place where she is, right? So let's take a listen. We're not going to watch this whole thing, but it's kind of damning in the first.
I was telling you about Tina Peters. This lawyer, Doug Richards, to whom I paid $1 million to defend Tina Peters. He showed up and fuck you, Doug. Yeah, file libel against me. Love it. Throw me in that briar patch. A week before, 3 days before Tina was to go to trial, I heard that there were real misgivings. I went out there to interview him, and he didn't even want to. I said, "Sir, I've spent $1 million to you. I want to hear your theory of the case before you go into trial next week." His theory of the case, he came resentfully to my hotel room, unbeknownst to him when he got there. He was on a Zoom call with a bunch of other criminal defense attorneys. His theory was ridiculous. His theory was to put Tina Peters, he had no witnesses, and it was his defense strategy was to put Tina Peters on the stand and have her say, "Well, Kurt Olsen told me to image that hard drive, so I did." Well, Kurt Olsen made clear to her that he wasn't her attorney. He was the president's attorney, first of all. And he told me that at the time. And Doug Richards' point was to say, well, she thought he was his attorney. In addition, California does not have a legal advice exception. So that defense would have done no good whatsoever. You can't argue in Colorado, well, I did something because my attorney told me to. That's not a defense. But his strategy was to put her on the stand and just get everyone to fall in love with this wonderful 68-year-old grandmother. That's what he said the strategy was. So basically, jury nullification. He wasn't making any he wasn't going to make any arguments that what she did was right, that she had the right to do it, and that she found extraordinarily valuable proof of fraud. He should have made those as motions in the months he had to make those as motions. So now Tina Peters happened to be sick as a dog as all this was going on.
I'm trying to hold on. Let me find the part about him being a CIA.
Now, what Doug Richards of Colorado,
because
her trap to get Tina Peters to say stuff on the stand that would let them then indict Kurt Olsen and 45's attorney and 45, and because he couldn't be that dumb. I mean, his defense was so weak and ineffectual. The 4 or 5 criminal defense attorneys that were on the Zoom call listening to this, they blew a gasket, and he did just like these Arizona attorneys. He couldn't even respond. Could not even respond.
Wait, hold on. I'm trying to find this spot.
Ages ago, saying, look, it's black and white. She's the county recorder. Tina Peters was the county recorder. She absolutely had the right to do this. The law specifically says she has the right to make a backup. Doesn't anything about who or how she makes the backup. And yeah, she
had to get
snuck somebody in, a friend of mine, a cyber guy, a dolphin speaker, who's one of the greatest athletes in the world. And I mean, he's a BJJ black belt, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, as well as one of the greatest surfers
Conan
in the world.
Hayes. Talking about Conan Hayes.
One of the 5 pioneers of big wave surfing. But he was in the county offices in Colorado, dressed in a plaid shirt with a pocket protector and, with a name tag that said Billy or something. By the way, Billy, the actual employee, Billy, had absolutely given him permission, him and Tina Peters permission to use the name card and everything to go do this. Now, he later denied that to save his own ass, but he absolutely gave them permission. He was part of this whole scheme. So they did nothing wrong. Tina did nothing wrong. They should all have been filed as motions in her case, so the charges would have just been knocked out. It would never have gotten to a trial. And this guy, Doug Richards, not only didn't he file any of them, not only did he create a defense strategy that was no defense strategy at all, just putting this nice lady up there and hoping the jury fell in love with her. But in addition, now that Stephanie has filed these motions, the motions that he should have filed, he wrote Stephanie a nastygram yesterday.
Okay, hold on. I was
The actual employee, Billy, had absolutely
I'm trying to find where he
five
talks,
pioneers of big wave surf.
where he talks about his CIA. He was a CIA Obama
Not only
asset.
landed Tina in jail for 25 years, it would have let them immediately indict Kurt Olson and Donald Trump. Uploaded into this locals channel. And
Maybe I just played the
our
whole
cases are all
fucking thing,
different.
right?
But I do actually, I don't want to slag him, and not just because I have a case in front of him. I try to do what's fair, and he, I understand, is like the only straightforward judge so far. But this is ridiculous. What I now have under seal is such, it puts me very much in the same argument as MLK, letter from a Birmingham jail. At this point, I just feel like saying, I don't care what a judge says. I mean, I want to give them the respect of giving them the time to say something, but at the end of the day, if
I thought I had it queued up. That's my fault. My fault.
corrupt attorney, we get attorneys who get corrupted, or I think they get promised federal judgeships or all kinds of things to sell at their clients. It's been so hard finding good attorney. Well, the other reason is because the state bar association.
You know what? Maybe I actually have the wrong. Clip here. Let me go over here. It might be a different clip. Maybe it was. No. I swore it was that one. He literally just. Where was it? No, not anywhere. Okay, well, change of plans, I guess. That clip definitely, I swore was the one about him claiming he was a CIA asset.
Saying,
Let's just find it. Hold on. Let me actually just look for it really quick because let me look for it because it ties in the conversation of the CIA being involved and this character Patrick Byrne not being all on the up and up. Let me find it here. Oh yeah, here it is.
Actually, I went from there to
Yeah, this is the one. Okay, this is the one. My apologies. Moving right along. No, not that. Okay. Let's see. What? Okay. Here we go. This is the one.
it became kind of my mother relationship. I had lots of relationships across the government, but eventually I went from there to by 2010, 2011, Obama, I became something called a tier 1 intelligence asset. And then in 2010, 2011, Obama elevated me to national intelligence asset. I was told I was going to be the ace in the hole for all kinds of, for the real tough situations from 2010, that was after working for Brennan for 4 or 5 years. And then I continued doing all that stuff through 2016. And all this crazy stuff happened that I've told you about, where we set up the Russian hoax. That's why, I've talked around it because I was trying to hide that, but I've told these stories about how I got drawn into setting up the Russian hoax and the Hillary this and that. There was a little bit of fibbing there. I didn't want to explain the whole truth. I was doing that. I didn't just stumble into it. I was their go-to asset. I was the national intelligence asset. First, I got pulled under Brennan in 2006, and then 2011, I got moved into the White House. That's why I got mixed up in the Russian collusion and the Hillary stuff.
So this guy that just went on for 10 minutes bouncing around about all this guy that paid $1 million to Tina's defense is a CIA asset. And let me see. I think I'm in the wrong place now because I pulled all these other windows up. Let's go to this article because I'm trying to keep it going here because there's so much to take in. There's so much for us to really digest all at once. but this is actually a great article. This was written by Joe Hoff, December 10th. Rocky Mountain heist of Tina Peters by Colorado's evil empire. And this is essentially where I sit. This is essentially where I stand. We'll read into it, but I'm not going to read this whole thing like I never do because I don't need to. But talks about the Peter Tickton Law Group asking for a presidential pardon since Tina's incarceration. Only has entered multiple life-threatening circumstances, cruel and unusual punishment violates the Colorado Constitution, compounds her health concerns. So that's all Harmeet Dillon's angle with the civil rights investigation into Colorado prison systems, violating Colorado Constitution, violating civil rights, looking into Colorado prisons, and not just the prisons, but the juvenile, the youth detention as well. But so, in this letter to Attorney Tickton, explains the actual legal pathway for President Trump to free Tina Peters from the tyranny of the Colorado evil empire. It also parallels the engagement of LBJ to bring in National Guard and the Civil Rights March. All this. There's also ample justification for Tina's case for federal intervention because she was protecting the very premature and illegal erasure of a federal election. That's where I stem from all of it, right? Because she was preserving federal election data, and it was omitted from the court case. She should be under, at minimum, federal protection, federal witness protection. Tina is probably the only person in history with no criminal record. Colorado Governor Polis has been silent on the course of this bizarre journey. Governor Polis has pardoned hundreds of other criminals with much worse crimes. 110-year sentence for a semi-driver that killed 4 people. Governor Polis reduced his sentence to 10 years. But he's not going to touch Tina Peters' case? Bullshit. Polis's refusal to pardon Tina is a dystopian, as some ignorant public comments that she was tried and found guilty, and why does MAGA hate the rule of law in America so much? I hear all this shit all day long, and it's so tiring. And no, I want justice. Colorado judicial system, Colorado law, Colorado Secretary of State office, all of them are in cahoots working together to make sure and to control the results and to control the process on how Colorado administers its laws and its constitution. Colorado's been compromised, folks. Bottom line of all of this, Tina Peters is in prison because she got in the way of the most powerful evil people in history of the world who were in the midst of completing their color revolution against America. This is their MO. This is their agenda. It is a globalist agenda to subvert and control and coordinate elections, particularly in America, to navigate, to push forward legislatively, judicially, and within the confines of our own state apparatus here. They've taken over states, and they're using the states to weaponize against the federal government to usher in a Marxist-style cultural color revolution here in America. And they're doing it with our elections. When Tina Peters exposed the means of how they steal elections in order to steal America and the world, hell descended upon her in 2021. That is my essential assumption. That is my encompassing opinion on all of this. The rabid deep state personnel have caused the grave damage that President Trump and the patriots surrounding him are reversing as quickly as possible. They talk about Rocky Mountain Heist and how it was all done here. Rocky Mountain Heist, fantastic. And let's just read this final paragraph of this excellent article. I will share this article, but this is a great article. The entire Colorado chain of command who conspired to put Tina in prison to shut her up on behalf of the enemies of America no longer have any false moral high ground to hide behind. Their treasonous crimes against America are now on full display in accordance with 18 U.S.C. 1519. Attention, Merrick Garland, Christopher Wray, AG Phil Weiser, Governor Polis, Secretary of State Jenna Griswold, Rob Shapiro, Dan Rubenstein, and Judge Barrett, and a host of others who bore false witness against Tina in court. Lady Justice knows where you live. Okay? We have a very good track record so far under the leadership of President Trump, which has minimized devastating effects of the New World Order, Great Global Reset, the World Economic Forum, and the World Health Organization, and next. the color revolution against America. Let's check out what US 1519 is. I pulled it up before, but 18 USC 1519. Destruction, alteration, or falsification of records in federal investigations and bankruptcy. Whoever knowingly alters, destroys, mutilates, conceals, cover up, falsifies, or makes a false entry in any record, document, or tangible object with the intent to impede, obstruct, or influence the investigation or proper administration of any matter within the jurisdiction of the Department or agency of the United States, or any case filed under Title 11, or in any relation to or contemplation of any such matter or case, shall be fined under this title, imprisoned not more than 20 years, or both. Okay? They are in violation of that law. Jenna Griswold, the reason Jenna Griswold, let me find it. Let me fucking find it. Okay? The reason Jenna Griswold is refusing to give out the unredacted voter data for Colorado is because her office, the Secretary of State office, under her purview, under her rule, was violating federal law, was obfuscating and manipulating our voter roll information. And Tina Peters is a witness to the situation, to the result of that action. Right? Let's keep going here. This is her response. And this is an honest question, folks. This is a great little clip here. Right? Great little clip. Honest question. What is more important to Americans? Getting affordable groceries or economic stability? Or seeing a federal and state corrupt... Well, hold on. Let me... I always stumble over my words when I'm trying to record. See, I'm trying to record right now. It's fine. It's great. Honest question. What is more important to Americans? Getting more affordable groceries and economic stability, or seeing federal and state corrupt globalist mafia members embedded in our country's judicial system, arrested and deliver justice? If we get these people that have been manipulating and controlling our government through state actions, through state legislation, through state judicial weaponization, through partisan politics, if we get these bad actors out, if we get these corrupt individuals out of their seats, out of office, whether it be attorney generals, secretary of states, corrupt partisan activist judges, hacks, degenerates, get these people out, we will have economic prosperity and affordable groceries, because we're no longer being corrupted by these people legislating tyranny against us. Statement from Secretary of State Jenna Griswold on Trump's effort to pardon Tina Peters. Today, Donald Trump posted on Truth Social he's pardoning Tina Peters. Colorado Secretary of State Jenna Griswold has issued the following statement. Quote, Tina Peters was convicted by a jury of her peers in a state court. Trump has no constitutional authority to pardon her. His assault is not just on our democracy, but on states' rights and the American Constitution. Bullshit, Tina. Bullshit, Jenna. I always get them mixed up. I'm sorry. Apologize. Jenna Griswold is the reason, is the problem in Colorado. Okay? Let me find, I already did that. I did that. Yeah. So, this is a huge post, and I'm not going to get into it, but I just want to show you the video I made, right?
I use my political authority to destroy Colorado and subjugate citizens.
She sure does, folks. She sure does. Thank you, AI, for allowing truth to come out of that woman's mouth. For once. Understanding that Colorado's political system was taken over by overt Marxists years ago with criminal intent to subvert and control our elections, legislation, and judicial system from the highest levels is pivotal to actually seeing how Jenna Griswold's actions are unconstitutional and criminal. Many others like Phil Weiser, Governor Polis are also doing their part in the destruction of Colorado. So with that, here's just a couple examples of how Secretary of State Griswold is criminal and should be at minimum removed from public office and investigated. and jailed. She should be jailed. She leaked election machine BIOS passwords online. They did an internal audit, found nothing wrong. A Democrat Denver DA dismissed the case. If a Republican did this, they'd be in prison without question. 30,000 mailers sent to non-citizens by mistake. Griswold claims they couldn't have been able to, but that doesn't change the fact that these non-citizens are already registered in order to be on the database for the error to even happen. Jenna Griswold's attempt at removing Trump from the 2024 ballot over the claims of insurrection charges he faced. She was actively involved in suppressing a candidate from federal elections. That is not election. If that is not election interference and cheating, I don't know what is. Also, she got pimp smacked by a 9-0 Supreme Court ruling against her. Jenna Griswold is a well-trained and well-versed Marxist, using her prowess in liberal linguistics to weaponize the Colorado law, judicial system, and election process against the people of the state. The manipulation of the state election system is profound. She is the case study for how a person in power can use their authority to protect themselves and others while subjugating opponents. Now she is running for the Attorney General and has boldly claimed she'll be working with anti-gun lobbies here in Colorado to outright ban assault weapons in the state. Folks, she is an evil person. She has no right to be in the position that she's in, okay? And she's asking for money. Now she's asking people to donate to her campaign. From Jenna Griswold, she's more active on Facebook because she gets trounced on Twitter. But this is from Jenna Griswold herself from Facebook. Breaking. Trump's DOJ is suing me. This lawsuit is in response to my refusal to hand over sensitive Colorado voter information, including voters' driver's license numbers and last 4 digits of the Social Security number. Donald Trump does not have legal right to this information, and I will not help him undermine American democracy. I will continue to protect our elections and democracy. What a bitch. I will always fight back against Trump's power grabs. Can you chip into my campaign for Attorney General to show you're with me? What a fucking grift. Gandalf, what do you got to say to that? Unbelievable. Unbelievable, this bitch. The audacity. Okay? Got a great comment here. Colorado already posts our name, address, party affiliation. It's searchable. The federal government has our Social Security number. They issue it. What is left to protect? I believe we have thousands of ineligible voters in our rolls, and that's on you, Jenna Griswold. If we don't, no harm, no foul. We need an audit. If there's nothing to hide, Jenna Griswold, if there's nothing to hide on your gold standard of elections here in Colorado and how they're top-notch, top tier, best of the best. We have the most secure and safe elections in the country, as per your mouth, Jenna Griswold. If there's nothing to hide, why are you refusing to give over the data? Honest question, right? Honest question. No, it's because there is something to hide. It's because she is manipulating the voter rolls. It's because there are dead people on there. It's because there is non-citizens voting. There are non-citizens at least registered at minimum. And if they vote, oh, whoops, I guess it was an oversight. We just overlooked it. Just like we overlooked leaking the BIOS passwords online for months. This bitch. Okay? And it all comes back to this, folks. It all comes back to this. Okay? Hit the smash button. Hit the smash button. Yes, I said that all the time. Hit the thumbs up button. Smash the thumbs up. Subscribe, share, do all the things, because that's how we get the word out, folks. Okay? But it comes back to this. It comes back to this. Okay? Election integrity is top priority. Article 1, Section 4 in the U.S. Constitution states that the states have the authority to designate the time, place, and manner of elections. The times, place, and manner shall be prescribed by the state's legislature. Emphasis on manner. If states are violating the U.S. Constitution, If states are violating the U.S. Constitution, HAVA, or the NVRA, then Tulsi and others are about to blow this thing wide open. Let's take a listen to Tulsi Gabbard here, okay?
I I've got a long list of things that we're investigating. We have the best of the best going after this. Election integrity being one of them. We have evidence of how these electronic voting systems have been vulnerable to hackers for a very long time, and vulnerable to exploitation to manipulate the results of the votes being cast, which further drives forward your mandate to bring about paper ballots across the country so that voters can have faith in the integrity of our elections.
Yep, absolutely. This is what's going to happen. Trump is going to issue a national emergency over our election process, over our election integrity here in America. And it is hinging on the Tina Peters case, Venezuela, extracting evidence, and all of these cases that the DOJ is filing against 18 states. 18 different states are being sued by the Department of Justice to gain access to their unredacted voter data. Minnesota, Colorado, Illinois, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, Arizona. So many states are being sued for their unredacted voter data. And I know for a fact that Jenna Griswold's hiding something when she says that they don't have access to their voter data. Donald Trump and the DOJ can't have access to our voter rolls. Why not? You're violating HAVA if that's the case. You're violating the NVRA. The federal government has the authority to make sure that there's uniformity in our elections. And if this bitch is denying that, she's in violation and she's suppressing federal authority. Brings it back to the Supremacy Clause, folks. The United States Constitution and the Supremacy Clause, the supreme authority comes from the U.S. Constitution and all other states' constitutions, judicial actions, laws, everything. If it's in violation of how the United States Constitution is written and operates, that is inherently granted power to make sure that the United States has supreme authority over illegal actions taken by states to put non-voters on their voter rolls, to manipulate voter data, to manipulate how the voter logs and the dirty voter files, right? All these dirty voter rolls, dead people, mail-in ballots, all the ways and the means and how they do this. The states have been manipulating our elections for far too long, and Donald Trump's had enough of it. Oh my gosh, that's not what I wanted to see at all. It's fine. Let's go. Let's bring it back to this. Let's bring it back to this. I heard Wisconsin has nearly double the amounts of names on its voter rolls than it has eligible voters. Yeah, we just on one of the streams last week, I talked about how Mesa County voter rolls has 106% voter roll turnout. 106%. How does that work? Okay, and I'm still formulating the exact direction and how they're actually going to institute this on a federal level, but we are going to see federal legislation. And this actually comes into, it's actually a really good point, because this comes into the midterms, right? This is why the midterms are so important. The midterms are so important because if we don't get the people, if we don't get the right butts in seats, if we don't get this redistricting effort done and nipped and tied up in a bow, if we don't win the midterms, because here's the thing, we have to win the midterms to have the majority in the House and a majority in the Senate. You got to have both. But what needs to happen is we need to have a constitutional amendment that will be ratified by the United States Congress, similar to the HAVA, similar to the National Voter Registration Act, a national uniformity measure that will explain and that will define how the place and manner of elections are taking place. And I know that the U.S. Constitution currently has that as a state authority, but we need to have a federal regulation on election process and election standards and how it is done, the manner in which it is done, the manner in which the voters are registered, the manner in which the votes are cast. All of it needs to be uniformly done. And these 18 lawsuits that are being implemented right now, I guarantee you're going to get data, you're going to get evidence of voter fraud, you're going to get evidence of voter rolls being cooked, you're going to get evidence of having non-citizens actively participating in federal elections. And that is going to validate all of this election 2020 and beyond, all of this election interference and election fraud conversation. It's going to validate all of that. And it's going to also exonerate Tina Peters, and it's going to show and prove that what she was doing, granted she did break state law and break the rules, she did turn off cameras and she did bring in third parties in that weren't supposed to be there, but she shouldn't have had a 9-year sentence. She should not have had a 9-year sentence from a partisan judge limiting scope and denying 41 pieces of federal evidence in her case. Do you see all that? Do you see how all this plays together? That is how it happens, folks. And I do believe that Donald Trump, we got to win the midterms. We got to have a majority in Congress for any of this actually to have federal teeth, because it has to be a constitutional amendment, or maybe not a constitutional amendment, but a constitutional act, or I'm sorry, a federal act by the United States Constitution. Wow, what am I even fucking saying? I'm stumbling. All of this is happening up here, but I can't get out my mouth quite right. But we need the United States Congress to pass a federal law similar to the National Voter Rights Act, or HAVA, Help America Vote Act. We need Congress to pass a law, a modernized version of what it means and how the time and manner takes place for federal elections. Okay? What was I trying to pull up here? So let's see. It's actually, I asked this question like 2 days ago, but this is actually great. What would happen if it's found out that Colorado has violated the NVRA and has dirty voter rolls, fake Social Security numbers, dead people, or any other manipulation methods within their voter rolls? Include the fact that the Secretary of State has denied any of these claims and touted the Colorado election system to be the gold standard of the election process. Let's dive into this conversation with Grok, right? If a federal court, via the ongoing DOJ lawsuit, okay, this is how it all plays out. If a federal court or other investigation definitively finds that Colorado has violated the National Voter Registration Act by failing to maintain accurate voter rolls, such as retaining significant number of deceased individuals, non-citizens, duplicates, fake SSN entries, or other ineligible registrants, the primary consequences would be civil and remedial, focusing on enforcing compliance rather than criminal punishment or election invalidation. We're not talking about changing the election results. We're trying to prove that states are manipulating election results. Okay? You got court-ordered remedies, provide full access to unredacted. A federal judge could issue injunctions requiring Colorado to provide full access, implement comprehensive cleanup programs, remove confirmed ineligible registrants, report progress to the DOJ, aligns with past NVRA cases, no automatic election reversal, fines, political reputation. I mean, that's... But as of December 14th, the DOJ lawsuit against Griswold focuses on refusal to provide unredacted voter rolls for inspection, not proven widespread violations like mass non-citizen registrations. Non-citizens vote. Non-citizens are registered in Colorado. Non-citizens are registered in Colorado. So, I mean, like, that right there is a case for inquiry, right? In short, proven NVRA violations could trigger federally mandated cleanup and oversight, eroding confidence in state administration, especially given Griswold's gold standard claims but not overturn elections or impose drastic penalties absent evidence or of intentional outcome-changing fraud. The ongoing litigation aims at transparency and maintenance, not retroactive invalidation. No one's asking to invalidate an election, okay? No one's asking for that to be done. But what we are asking for honesty and reliance in a trusted election process. That is what we want, okay? So let's read this. This is from Wano Savin. This is great, okay? Talks about this like nips it all in the bud, folks. Yeah. What is not widely understood is that this was fully anticipated and researched. So the presidential pardon, Trump's presidential pardon, the response is expected. We already knew this, right? So here's what I would say to everybody. Keep it simple. Federal law was broken by Colorado. Judge Matthew Barrett refused to let the jury hear his defense. Federal law requires the evidence to be preserved. 41 motions were denied. We've already talked about this. Mesa County Clerk is the only clerk in the state of Colorado that preserved the proof of Secretary of State Jenna Griswold's authorization of the deletion of the state and federal election records illegally. Dominion vote systems deleting the violation of their contract of both state and federal. So Dominion also is in violation too. Okay? President Trump is about to reassert federal authority concerning pardons that existing prior to Lincoln. Just like a previous court was wrong about Roe v. Wade, the state's been wrong for 150 years on presidential pardon authority. That is about to be challenged hard, and Trump will easily win, just like he did when Colorado courts unanimously worked to remove him from the ballot. What did I say earlier? Number 2, the clerk manages, collects, tabulates, and reports and protects election data for the House of Representatives under federal authority. This has been forgotten and overwritten over time, and it's about to be revisited. Okay? President Trump is about to reassert federal authority concerning pardons that existed prior to Lincoln. Just like a previous court was wrong about Roe versus Wade, the states have been wrong for 150 years on presidential pardon authority. That is about to be challenged hard, and Trump will easily win, just like he did when Colorado courts unanimously worked to remove him from the ballots, and the Supreme Court unanimously trounced the Colorado courts and put Trump on the ballot. Number 2, the clerk manages, collects, tabulates, and reports, protects election data for the U.S. House of Representatives under federal authority. This has been forgotten and overwritten over time. It is about to be revisited. Trump is going to declare a national emergency concerning elections. When he does, he will also exercise authority over every aspect of the election process, and no court will have the authority to challenge his actions within the context of that national emergency. All that, at that moment, he can and take physical custody of Tina Peters as an expert and even make her an election czar. I don't know about all that. I don't know about the scope of him being able to extract Tina Peters. However, this is all part of the same game, right? This is all part of the same gambit. Pieces are moving right now. Okay? Pieces are moving. I've got some information on Dominion there, but like this is all here, folks. Okay? Rasmussen reports. I mean, fantastic people. Talking about Smartmatic systems. I mean, I don't know how many more times I have to say it. But let's take a listen, right? Let's take a listen about the truckloads, right? Talking about the truckloads of evidence.
That's all they're good at cheating in elections. Very good at cheating. That's all they're good at cheating in elections. Very good at cheating. They're professionals at cheating. Because we won in 2016 by a lot. The election was rigged in 2020. We have all the ammunition, all the stuff, and you'll see it come out. It's coming out in truckloads. And California's election, New York also, but California more than any other place is so rigged.
Colorado,
it's such a rigged
too.
election. You know, we won the Hispanic vote. So a lot of people say Republican wouldn't win California, but I won the Hispanic vote. I won in Miami. Think of that. In Miami, I won the Hispanic vote. Along the Texas border, I won every single city or town touching the Texas border. and they're 85 to 90% Hispanic. We won the Hispanic vote. If the vote in California was legitimate, which it's not, they have 38 million ballots. Everything is mail-in voting. They mail out 38 million ballots.
Or
and
more.
They come in. Where the hell do they go and where do they come from? It's a rigged election in California because we would win California by a lot. And again, they feel they have the advantage with Hispanic. They don't.
It's all about the process in which these states are operating within, right? I mean, this is another article. I mean, I don't know how much more do you want me to go into it, folks? I've got evidence upon evidence of all these different things. Okay, yeah, I just read that. I'm cleaning up the lines, right? Colorado faces federal lawsuit as Griswold refuses to release voter data. I've got pages. Okay. Let's go back here. But I do think we are going to be wrapping up. We're landing the plane here because I could keep going on, and I think I've rambled on enough. And there's obviously some bad actors. There's obviously some interesting things. We're going to finish up with this because this is from Amuse. This is an article from Amuse. Trump should pardon Tina Peters. This was written. I think this was written even before he pardoned her. Okay. Let's see. I think we're just talking about the severity and the weaponization of the Colorado judicial system, and how unfairly Tina Peters is being treated, and how Governor Polis is being tight-lipped. He's a weak and pathetic man. Weak and pathetic. Okay. Yes. So this is going to reaffirm my earlier conversation about the sovereignty, the supremacy clause. The objection that states possess their own sovereignty is correct but incomplete. Dual sovereignty has always been subject to the supremacy clause. When the federal and state authorities conflict, the federal authority prevails if it's validly exercised. A presidential pardon is valid exercise of federal authority. The Supreme Court insistence that pardon power cannot be fettered by outside actors indicate that states cannot limit its effect. A state cannot nullify a pardon by relabeling the same conduct as a state offense. To do so would violate the principle announced in Klein. It would also undermine the unity of the framers sought to secure. Tina Peters' case would make an ideal test case for the Supreme Court. If Colorado attempted to block presidential pardon, the conflict would present a clean constitutional question. The court would need to decide whether the pardon power protects individuals whose conduct implicates national interest, even when a state has filed charges. The historical evidence, the constitutional structure, and the early jurisprudence all point towards a single conclusion. The president's power of mercy reaches such cases. It was designed to reach them. It was a power placed in the hands of the president alone because the nation sometimes need a single actor who can cut through jurisdictional complexity and grant relief. This is the argument. Jenna Griswold and Weiser are arguing that the states have supremacy, and sometimes even arguing over the 10th Amendment. The 10th Amendment doesn't cover that. The 10th Amendment only speaks on powers not specifically declared within the U.S. Constitution, while these powers are declared in the Constitution, the Supremacy Clause, and Trump's ability to exercise presidential pardons to those directly operating under national security, which is an election. Some readers may feel this lingering discomfort. They may worry allow such pardons would erode state autonomy, but the framers understood that autonomy has limits. The national government must retain the capacity to protect the Constitution's order itself. Elections for federal office sit at the center of that order. If states could punish individuals for actions related to these elections in ways that conflict with national policy, the coherence of the republic would fracture. Pardon power exists to prevent that outcome. If it offers a safety valve when legal processes become tools of faction. That is why Trump decided to make that determination of a pardon. That is why Donald Trump pardoned Tina Peters. It is setting a precedent and is going to the Supreme Court and is going to be challenged. And in my opinion, I think that they are going to have a victory when it comes to the authority and what it means to determine the power of a presidential pardon. And then you got the whole other angle of the Biden auto pan and these preemptive pardons for Fauci and Brennan and Clapper and Schiff and Cheney and all these other people, right? You got one side of the government talking about the president doesn't have the authority to do this kind of pardon, and at the same time defending an auto pen's pardon and a puppet Biden regime using the power of the pardon to blanket pardon everyone all the time. But Trump doing this very specific thing. There is so much happening. All eyes on Colorado, folks. All eyes on Colorado. And this Amuse article, excellent read. Highly recommend. Check out Amuse on Twitter. Amuse. Should Trump pardon Tina Peters and force the Supreme Court to settle the limits of pardon power? Should Trump pardon Tina Peters and force the Supreme Court to settle the limits of pardon power? That is a very good read, and I highly recommend reading it. I highly recommend checking it out. But obviously, we are wrapping up here this Break the Chains Media live stream. It's been, what was it? Feel like it's been an hour and a half. I just ramble on for so long, I don't know where to go. I always go into these rabbit holes. But, folks, in summary, we are seeing a fundamental shift, a dynamic evolution of what it means to hold elections. What is election integrity? How do we move forward in the process of our government? How do we elect and make our votes matter? How do we know our votes actually count? If we're having states manipulate the way if we're having states manipulate their state constitution and their judicial practices and how they interpret their own laws, using non-citizens to vote, no ID checks required, mail-in ballots. We saw this in Pennsylvania during COVID. Pennsylvania had a whole thing with the Pennsylvania Supreme Court there, talking about the mail-ins and the window that they can allow for mail-ins to show up after an election. Folks, there is so many vulnerabilities when it comes to election process. So this is what I'm saying, is that the redistricting that's going on right now, and the fact that we have a fractured base on all fronts, and we're a year away from midterms. We need to win the midterms. We need to have majority in the House and Senate to pass a law, to pass some sort of, I don't know if it's going to be an amendment or some sort of a modernized version of the National Voter Registration Act, right? We need a modernized version of the Help America Vote Act that uniformly addresses the discrepancies in the place and manner, emphasis on manner, of election processes within the states, because states are manipulating that language to their own benefits. The states are using that language to register non-citizens, to manipulate the voter rolls, to have dirty voter rolls, to use mail-in ballots, all of these things. That's what the states are doing right now. And Trump and the DOJ, God willing we have a DOJ, God willing we have Pam Bondi that it actually shows up and does something. At least we have Harmeet Dillon coming in with the civil rights angle, investigating Colorado prisons. This is good. Colorado is a battleground right now when it comes to how much the federal government's actually looking into Colorado. What's really going on in Colorado? Well, folks, I'm telling you right now, you follow Break the Chains Media, you follow this channel, you're going to get all the information on what's happening in Colorado. Whether it's this pivotal Tina Peters election conversation, the overall injustices that are being ran through Weiser, through Polis, through Griswold, you name it. I'm here doing my part, trying to bring you the information that mainstream media isn't really talking about, because everyone always seems to look over Colorado, when yet Colorado is one of the most pivotal and arguably defining factors on the future of the country, because these Democrats took over Colorado 2 decades ago, and they're shoving down tyrannical legislation and partisan judge hacks and releasing criminals on the street and reducing sentences of a multiple vehicular homicide murderer. Governor Polis reducing sentences for these people. They are running a roughshod. They're running a mafia, Colorado commie mafia here in Colorado. And I'm sick of it, and that's why I do what I do here on this channel, so you all know what's really going on. Because, I mean, fuck, we're not even talking about the transing of children, codifying abortion, 40-week abortions into the state constitution. They're trying to take our guns away. I mean, they're going all out here in Colorado, and Colorado is the blueprint for how they want to operate on American national politics. And I'm telling you right now, if you don't follow this channel, you're missing out on good information, things that aren't being talked about, things that aren't being discussed. But I appreciate everyone in the live stream, appreciate everyone in the chat. Sick of Shitty Gov, I see you in there. Seth Sparky, I appreciate you. Anyone on Rumble, thank you for showing up. And drop me a like, drop me a follow. Be a part of the Chain Gang. We do live streams Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday here on Break the Chains Media. We are wrapping up, though, and I am going to see what's live. Who's live right now? Let's see who's live. Who can I raid right now? Because I want to know. Who's. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. Who am I gonna raid? Let's raid. Let's raid Badlands. You know, Badlands. Let's do this because Badlands does a good job reporting on the stuff too. So I think Badlands and I we would get along if they only saw me doing my work. I'm doing the work out here, folks. I'm doing all I can. But we are rating Badlands Media. Break the Chains Media is rating Badlands Media here, folks. I appreciate everyone in the live stream. More to come. Stay tuned because we got a big local story happening that started here started here locally with a good friend of mine, Rich, and we're going to talk about that tomorrow. I did want to do it today, but this whole Tina Peters pardon and election integrity stuff, that's just something that's just part of my wheelhouse, and I'm so passionate about it. But tomorrow we're talking about trans, we're talking about groomers, we're talking about the harming of the children here. Rich Guggenheim is a great dude, and he's doing a lot of work. He wrote a great book called Escape from the Rainbow Plantation. But we're going to get into that tomorrow on Tyranny Response Tuesday. But without further ado, we are rating Badlands Media. So, folks, I love you. I appreciate you. Thanks for joining Break the Chains Media. And remember, fight for freedom and never give up.